Hey guys, welcome back. So I wanted to give you an update on the 2001 F-250 project. As you can see, we're moving along pretty good with this truck. We've done a lot since the last time I've done a video of it, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what we've done and what we are in the middle of. So follow along. So as you can see, we're tearing into this front end here, and we will cover that here in a second. But as you can see, we got the front end on. And we got the bed back the other day, so nice and shiny, just the way we like it. So I got the bed installed, and we ended up using the Dorman bed bolts, which you can't really see in here, but they're in there. We use the Dorman bolts because they come threaded. So your Ford OEM bolts don't come threaded and are terrible to put in, but we're also running a newer tailgate on this truck, and it does have the backup camera in it. So it is wired for it. We just got to hook it up because I haven't hooked it up yet. But one thing we do like to do is we do like to anti-seize the bolts going in for the bed. Now, a lot of guys will tell you do not do this, and it's because they fear that the bolts can work out. But I can assure you, those bolts, they're not going to come out. They are tight in there going in because the bolts are the nuts are locking nuts. So they pinch the bolt, they hold on to it really, really well. The anti-seize is just basically so it helps it go in a little bit better, and then also it'll keep it from corroding in case you ever have to take this bed off again. It should come off a lot easier without having to get in there and torch the bolts off. So we still have to hook the exhaust up because I haven't got the bumper on the back yet to figure out where this exhaust tailpipe needs to be, but we'll get to that point eventually. So as you can see, we got the underside all done here, and the fuel fillers installed, and everything's hooked up. But as you can see, the exhaust pipe is still not connected. So truck is moving along nicely, so we can show you the interior here in a second. But I wanted to show you what we're doing on the front end here. And before I tear this side apart, I wanted to show you a couple things here. So, as you know, we had these axles sandblasted. All right, so when you get axles sandblasted, sand is always an issue. So we're going to go ahead and look inside this tube here. All right, so you can see there's a bunch of scale and crap in there. All right. And then you can also see on the very closest to you here that there's sand. All right, we stuff stuff in here, and the amount of sand in there is very minimal. Okay, so basically the only thing we were trying to do was keep intrusion to the differential. And I'm pretty sure we accomplished that, but you can still see there's a bunch of crud in there. So, you know, if you're doing a front end job on these trucks, make sure that you try to clean as much of this crap out of here as you can. And I know that it's not easy, and it's a pain, but it helps tremendously to do that. But you can see the sand that stuff had come out with the axle shaft. So the other thing here, these have a press in, and I call it a knuckle seal. Okay, so these things, they get kind of corroded in here. You can see a little bit of crust and rust. All right, so you know, I always try to clean these up with like a Scotch-Brite, try to get rid of the rust that's in there, and then I put a light layer of grease in here, so that way it's a little bit easier for the knuckle seal to slide in because it needs to be pressed in. So a lot of guys don't want to buy the press tool. So I had built this because I did not plan on doing a bunch of these front ends. I had did this because I was in a pinch and needed it. So 2-inch cap, and as you can see, it's well used. And then I basically just ground the edge off here and took a floor flange and made it fit the stub shaft and clearance the outside edge. So this is what I use to seat my knuckle seals, and it's something that at the time was cheaper than buying the actual tool, but anymore with the cost of pipe, it might be worth it to just buy the tool. So if you don't have access to a tool and need it right now, you can build one of these yourself from your local hardware store. And the reason you chamfer that floor flange is because of this right here. So as you can see, it sticks out a little bit, and you don't want to be marking this flange all up, or the shoulder on that stub axle. So we're replacing this axle shaft because we replaced the other side, and I'll show you the other side here in a second. But one other thing that I want to show you is when we brought this truck in here with the axles and everything, the ball joints were good, and then I started to look a little closer. So yeah, that ball joint is junk, and there is play in these ones, and the other side had a little bit of play. So we're going to be changing those out very, very shortly here. So let's come over to this other side that I've already done here. Now, as you can see, we have an axle shaft already put back in here, and this is the updated shaft assembly. So these universal joints are much, much larger, and as you can see, it is very, very close to that grease fitting. They're not touching, but we'll see in time if they decide to end up touching. But we have a new hub over here, so we bought new Ford hubs, and went ahead and went with the Ford wheel bearings on these. Ironically, they were only a few dollars more money than the Timkens. So we got all new ball joints and everything over here. As you can see, there's no steering installed here. I'll show you that in a second. So why are we replacing the axle shafts? So let's show you what neglect can do here. All right, so this clip is supposed to be right against the ear of that shaft. And as you can see, the shaft has a very nice bend in it. All right, so that's what happens whenever a U-joint explodes after not taking care of it. But also, that can happen whenever somebody is pressing the U-joint in and it doesn't line up and you have a good strong press, it'll actually bend these ears. So if you're not sure about the condition of your bores there in the ears of your shafts, then I suggest cutting the universal out, and then you just push in the new caps, because usually it's the old caps that cause these problems. But I think that this was a universal explosion because this ear is also bent on the other shaft. As you can see, that clip is no longer lined up there. So this axle shaft was trashed. As you can see, the universal joint is sticking out there, and that ear is also bent. So this is junk. So we ended up replacing it with a new assembly from Dana Spicer, and doing that entailed getting a larger U-joint. I do believe that they classify this as a 1480, and what we put in was a 1550. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that's how they classify it. That's what my reading had shown. I didn't physically actually measure the universal joints to find out. But we are moving along on this truck. So wanted to show you where we were at on this process here. So we're going to go ahead and do the ball joints on the other side and try to get this thing all wrapped up here today. Now, one thing I'm going to show you is the steering linkage here. So whenever I replace steering linkage, I generally almost always replace this adjuster because it's been on there, and as you can see, it still has the Ford logo on it. That's the original one. Sometimes they come loose, sometimes they don't. But if you're replacing the tie rod end and also the drag link, you're better to just replace the adjusting collar. It's not much more money, and it just makes your life a lot easier. So going back to the maintenance aspect of this, look how dry that is, okay? This was replaced. Somebody had replaced this, and it is bone dry. And as you can see, it is a Moog product. The problem with this is nobody put the grease fitting in. So that is a direct shot right into this joint. So no grease fitting meant the joint was never lubricated, and everything that they drove in, salt, grime, sand, dirt, mud, whatever, went inside that joint and destroyed it. So This one had play. This boot was destroyed and had play. That is destroyed. The only one that wasn't horribly bad was this one. But if you're replacing everything, replace this too. And if this is bent or anything like that, replace it as well. So we are moving along here with this truck. And I wanted to show you what we got into the front of this, because if you've watched the other videos, you saw that I also had to do the exact same thing to the other axles that we had put in. So this is nothing unusual. And then the interior is coming along on this truck very nicely. We have the gray interior pretty much all installed. We still have some wiring to do here, as you can see, with his aftermarket accessories that he wanted to add. But the bezel is not in yet because we still have to put the radio in. But we are moving forward here. Back seat's not quite installed yet. Still got to do some more stuff here. But much, much, much nicer inside. The gray is a much needed improvement since this truck used to be tan inside. So we went with the gray interior on this because we went with the gray exterior on this truck. And then the 23 wheels look really, really good with this color paint, which is great. And I can confirm that this is a dark shadow gray truck. So that is the actual color for this truck, dark shadow gray. So we're moving forward with this, and we'll get this thing put back together here today and hopefully have no more issues. So I'll get you started on getting some of this stuff replaced and get it all put back together. So we cut away to do the ball joint video. So we were doing that here, so to keep it separate from the update for this truck. But before I put this brake rotor back on, I wanted to show you guys some things that I do. And this is preventative maintenance and also safety maintenance. So first of all, you can see there's copper anti-seize here. And you always want to put that on when you're doing new brakes and rotors. So that way, whenever you go to take the rotor off or take the wheel off, you don't have a problem with corrosion. So that being said, I've already put the anti-seize on this hub. And we're going to end up replacing these rotors later on, but we want to make sure that these are good and get some miles put on the truck to make sure that we don't have any other issues. So the next step here is to put the caliper bracket on. This is a step that most people overlook. Now I've already cleaned the threads on these, and then you always want to put a little bit of blue thread locker on there. That's probably even a little bit too much, but you always want to put a little bit of blue thread locker on these caliper mounting bolts. Now, a lot of guys won't do it. However, I have seen firsthand where the mounting bracket will actually come loose. So we'll get those tightened up and get this rotor seated and put the caliper back on. However, make sure you put blue Loctite on those, because if you don't, I have seen where the caliper bolt does back out over time and it can fall completely out, and then this can either come up and hit your wheel or come completely off and you could have a failure of your brakes. So make sure that whenever you guys are doing brake jobs that you follow through and do the correct procedures, because you could be possibly impacting somebody's life. So we're going to go ahead and move on with the update of this truck and get a feel of what's been going on with this truck here. So we'll finish the brakes up on this side, but we have a new caliper on this side of the truck here, and you can see it hanging there. So we've got a new caliper over here, all new steering. We still have to do an alignment on this truck, but we have all new steering on here, and then like I had said earlier, we did this side over here. We still have to put this side back together, but no big deal. Also, and as you can see, I painted all the steering parts here, and I still have to wipe the grease off the fittings and grease these. So I got to make sure that I do that. But one thing I wanted to make notice of here is the factory steering stabilizer. So as you can see, it's hitting the lower coolant hose, so the lower radiator hose. Now, like I said, we are running a 7.3 in this truck, so we have the factory 05 to 07 stabilizer set up here, and I'm a little concerned with its proximity of the crank. So we're going to go ahead and watch this a little bit. So we're going to get it down on the ground after we're done, drive it a little bit, and kind of put the suspension through its paces if we can. That way we can see if that hose is actually going to make contact with the crank pulley, which would be very bad. So we may end up taking this steering stabilizer off in lieu of the PMF stabilizer that bolts to the crossbar here. So time will tell with that, so we will see. But we're going to go ahead and get this front end buttoned back up and get this truck back on the ground. We've got this truck set back down on the ground here. I think it looks pretty good. With all new front end components here, we got the new hubs put in, and then all the new steering linkage. We went ahead and opened up the front differential, so we're going to let that cure up and then get some oil put in it here tomorrow. But this is the update for the 2001 project, and as you can see, we got a whole bunch of new stuff on the front of this truck. Currently waiting on some other things, waiting on some mirror lights to come in before we put the caps on, and some other odds and ends, bumpers, and a little bit of wiring. But the next time you see this truck, it should be 100% complete and done. So moving forward, hopefully we'll get this truck out of here and make some space. So thanks for watching, guys. And if you like these videos and updates, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it very much. And we'll catch you on the next one.